abusuya yamama kwa aba sonko so eba POG Media ene dem be ko highway ne so highway ne de ensem bebre wo so a yen so ya je pene se ye be me ya bidwafo no ahu de eko ene de eba na den na eko so ewo highway ne so eye uncle Kwesi Pratt ena ede ensem bebre aba betudo a ensem na ode aba betudo no ano edin ye ankasa enye asamketo akra o se afi de Dr. Bawumia ajatum se ono no asem bi a obeka ache na na adodankwa Akufo-Addo bia no na adodankwa Akufo-Addo entie na se nsem a ode betu gya no speech na omai no ensem a okeka no oka ho bi na Ghana for ya bre for the past 7 years na o say sisi ano oba power obetwa saa nneoma ni nyina mu dia 10 months ya kan die san so o pese o kire o power ka kire o mpanyimfo no na muntwem fight against your government into the okeka na the Dr. Bawumia onsema okeka nyina ntro na wutwa Kwesi Pratt there always be ano or criticize ensema Dr. Bawumia any NPP amanyoko no yeden omoka because no on tolerate obia na nsem bia obeka bia no ensem a obeka na enye emma Ghana no obeba na ode reply aba abema waka nsem papa ensem o kan no emudo yebepe se yenke yebeme abedwafo no beme yakọ na yakọ akoti ensem a Kwesi Pratt Junior ede atuda na isi a Dr. Bawumia no ne nsem a bro ba ne de loser na wa accept loser ne sa because Ghana for ne de obia nye na adwen se or na adwen be ma Dr. Bawumia bio Kwesi Pratt enso aba be criticize no answer na be kono owo ensem kan bi afa share your comment section like share ma afofro so answer into me enka bi no say unbelievable enye asam keto akwa medamase
not had the courage to speak about, since the so-called vision of Dr. Bawumia was unveiled.
Okay.
I was particularly worried about his apparent overexcitement, which was visible from the very beginning of his address to the end. And his overexcitement, was reflected in his body movements. It was reflected in his unwarranted laughter and so on, And I was so very worried about him. You see, that kind of overexcitement, which is visible and so on, in some instances will call for medical examination. Something is wrong. And I'm hoping that psychoanalysts who watched him, clinical psychologists who watched him and so on, may want to advise. Because that overexcitement is not normal. Watch his body movements and so on. You understand? So I was particularly worried about that. And since then, I've insisted that he ought to be pitied rather than scorned. And I insist that this gentleman really deserves our pity. After listening to him and watching him, I'm beginning to think that we need to revise the English dictionary. Completely revise the English dictionary. Because there was nothing about a vision in what he presented. Essentially what he presented was a wish list. A wish list. And that wish list itself had not been properly crafted to the extent that he ends up self-indicting and validating his opponents. And it was troubling, you understand? Now, why do I talk about validation of his opponents? many of the things that Dr. Bawumia says that he's going to scrap are things that were introduced by his administration, which his opponents criticized, and his opponents were shouted down. So even the final analysis, he comes to admit that his opponents were right and he was wrong, or his government was wrong. Does that not amount to validation of his opponent's position? And indeed, let's take e-levy. Bawumia today is looking us in the face and saying that, look, if I become your president, I would abolish e-levy. Okay? He is realizing that today. Others realized it 2 years ago. So on the basis of e-levy, its propriety or its impropriety, who deserves your vote? The one who saw it later? The one who implemented the policy which was bad, which has worsened the state of the national economy? Or the one who from the very beginning saw that there was a problem with e-levy? Who deserves your vote? This is clear as daylight. Now, there's also this aspect that must be exceedingly worrying. You understand? And Dr. Bawumia himself has described himself as an aplanke. He has described himself as an assistant headmistress and so on. Now, my question is very simple. He was part of the team. He attended cabinet meetings. And I even suspect that at some times he presided over cabinet meetings. Okay. Now, these wrong policies, decisions were taken on these wrong policies for implementation. He didn't like the policies. Okay? From what he's saying today, he obviously didn't like the policies. So, Dr. Bawumia is telling us that he was defeated in cabinet. He was either defeated in cabinet or he didn't fight over these policies. You understand? Now, if he didn't fight over these policies, it raises substantial questions about his character, about his trustworthiness. That he sat in cabinet took decisions that he knew were wrong, which would damage the national economy. He kept quiet, he didn't fight, and those decisions were implemented. What a vice president. What a future president. Now, if he fought and was defeated, okay, it raises another issue of capacity. So it means that he sat in cabinet and couldn't convince his colleagues that what they were about to inflict on Ghana was wrong and unworkable. That's an issue of capacity. He didn't have the capacity. He didn't have the arguments. He didn't have the facts to convince his fellow cabinet members. My goodness. And he wants to be president? What a president he will be. I can't believe it. And he said all these things. Unexpected applause. Expected that all these things he had said would push the people of Ghana to make him president. Now, I've said this before and I'm going to repeat it. And I'm going to use his own, how do you call it? His own words. Not words really. But listen. The man says that he's an aplanke. The driver's mate. Aplanke. The driver's mate. Now if you go to the trotro station, the only skill the aplanke has or displays, so Abaka la pass, Abaka la pass, Abaka la pass. Everybody can do that. Anybody can do that. Just hang on to the door of the bus and be shouting, yes, Abekala pass, Abekala pass, Abekala pass. The skills of the driver are much more. The driver has to have the capacity to anticipate. You understand? The driver really knows that all the 23 lives in the Mercedes-Benz bus, are in his hands and so on. The driver is a thoughtful person. The driver makes decisions and so on. So, for the last 7 years, all that Bawumia did was to be shouting, Abekala pass, Abekala pass, Abekala pass. And he enjoyed all the perks just for shouting Abekala pass. And that's how he sees himself. He sees himself just as an aplanke. For 7 years he was an aplanke, shouting Abekala pass. Can't believe it. But that's how Bawumia sees himself. In any case, and I've said this before, it's not new, I'm going to repeat it. All of us, 5 of us, we've joined a bus that is going to Insaum. A commercial bus going to Insaum. When we get to Caprice, the driver parks the car and says, I'm coming. Then he goes into a blue kiosk. He cuts 2 halves straight. I know that stuff is measured in quarters, halves, and fourths. Yes. So this driver, he cuts 2 halves straight away. And then on top of that, he takes an energy drink. And he's staggering towards the bus. The aplanke knows that this is what the driver has done, his boss has done. The aplanke doesn't protest. He doesn't alert the passengers. Nothing. He sits there. He says, oh, one day I'll be the driver. So I can forget this one. My brother, that bus would not get to Fanko. It will crash and kill the people in it. And if that bus does not get to Fanko, crashes and kills the people in it, are you telling me that the aplanke is innocent and bears no responsibility for the accident? The aplanke who kept quiet, who didn't complain, who just waited his turn to be the driver. What kind of an aplanke is that? What kind of an aplanke is that? But this is what Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia says that he is. I'm not saying that he is. He himself says that he's an aplanke. Because I don't believe that he was an aplanke. But if we are to take his words seriously, who will trust such an aplanke? You see, it doesn't end there. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia tells us that, look, a couple of months more, maybe 10 months more and so on, I will become president. Things are very bad now. My own government has imposed e-levy on you and you are suffering. Don't worry. Wait for another 10 months. When my boss is out of the way, I will take over and I will abolish your suffering e-levy. I can't believe it. I can't believe that he said that to us. Sana, can you believe that he said that to us? That we should continue suffering for 10 months. And that until he becomes president, he will hang on our neck. Hey, this man, what does he think of himself? If e-levy is bad, if all the things he wants to ban are bad, why doesn't he speak now and ask for their removal now? Why should we wait for 10 months? Why? What have we done wrong? What have we done to Bawumia that he wants us to suffer for another 10 months? And then when he becomes president, he would then pity us. Now he has no pity for us. When he has become president, he will pity us and remove this burden which was placed on us with his blessing. I can't believe it. There's something else, and I'm not making this up. Anybody who has watched the presentation of budgets over the last 7 years cannot forget this image of Kenuforiata carrying his custom-made bag and being followed by Dr. Bawumia to Parliament House. Indeed, it is only in this administration that I've noticed that the Vice President religiously follows the Finance Minister to Parliament House. That symbolism, what was it meant to portray? Why has Bawumia been always following Kenuforiata to Parliament? Clearly, it's an endorsement, it's a statement of endorsement of the budget. Yeah. So if he didn't like what Kenuforiata was saying, or was going to say, why did he religiously follow him to Parliament House to present the budget that he disagreed with? Now, my brother, yesterday I watched a lot of videos. I mean, these days, everywhere you turn, the videos are imposed on you. You have to watch them. Especially if you watch Metro TV. Metro TV does a classic job of playing these videos. So they played a couple of State of the Nation addresses by His Excellency the President. You understand? Mm-hmm. And in all of the State of the Nation addresses, the President makes the point that his economic policy and its implementation largely lies on the shoulders of his Vice President. And in one instance, the President praised Dr. Bawumia to the high heavens, called him smart and all of that. And then the cameras panned to Dr. Bawumia and he was so happy. He was so happy. And he was giggling. He was shaking in his chair. My goodness. When the President praised him as the key manager of the economy, he was happy. He didn't protest. Now he was with President. He says, no, don't blame me. I was only the aplanque. I was only the assistant headmistress. Sana, that's a school. Maybe a senior high school. And there's a headmistress. And there's the assistant headmistress. And the headmistress notices that the food which is being served to the students is unwholesome. The students are eating unwholesome food. It will affect their health and so on. The assistant headmistress says that and say, this headmistress is wicked. Look at the food being fed to the students. But in any case, I am not the headmistress yet. So wait. In 10 months' time when I become the headmistress, I would make sure that the children are not fed with poison anymore. What an assistant headmistress. What an irresponsible assistant headmistress that will be. And who, in his or her right senses, will make this assistant headmistress the headmistress? After displaying this irresponsibility, I can't believe it. Now, we should look at a few things. One of the promises that Dr. Bawumia makes is that he will run this country with the number of ministers substantially reduced to how many? 50. Okay. That's very interesting. Again, there's a video of Dr. Bawumia sitting by his boss, in which the boss justifies the appointment of so many ministers and says, look, that tax is heavy. I can't do it alone. I need a lot more hands to be able to do the job. And Dr. Bawumia is nodding his head. Nodding his head. The job is heavy. You can't do it with 50 ministers. You need a lot more ministers to do it. He doesn't complain. He doesn't complain publicly. He doesn't complain privately. He goes along as vice president. Then John Dramani Mahama, former president, comes and says, look, this size of government is too much. We are broke. The economy is in the doldrums. We need to reduce the size of government. And therefore, if I'm given the mandate, I'll reduce the size of ministers to 60. Oh, Dr. Bawumia sees a chance to dribble John Mahama. So he comes and says, hey, the man says what? He says he will reduce it to 60. I will beat him. I'll reduce it to 50. This is undercut. Now, just imagine. The former President Mahama said that he will reduce the number of ministers to 30. What number would Bawumia have given? Just imagine that. Look, the people of Ghana, we are not stupid. The people of Ghana actually fought against British colonialism and defeated British colonialism. The people of Ghana have done many things before. The people of Ghana have demonstrated throughout our history that we are people capable of thinking and acting in our interest. Let nobody take us for fools. Don't worry. He says 60. So me, I count 50. If he says 40, I'll come 30. If he says 30, I'll come 20. Abba! What is this? For me, what worries me is an inferred assumption that we can't see through this.
Yeah.
And if we can't see through this, then we are all yo-yos. Unfortunately for you, Dr. Alhaji Timothy Mahmoud Bawumia, His Excellency, we are not yo-yos. We are capable of thinking. Unfortunately, we are not yo-yos. We are capable of thinking. There is something that killed me completely in the address. Senna, I died. Hey! And I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. What? Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia said something that was classic. He says, under his administration, as president of Ghana, nobody will have to apply for a passport.
Yeah. Yes.
All you have to do is to have the national ID card. And I was wondering, what is an application for passport? An application for passport is simply a request that you need a passport. So if you're not going to be applying for passport, what will happen? You sit in your house and because you have a national ID card, passport office will deliver a passport to you in your home, whether you need it or not. What is this? He actually said that the passport will be delivered to your house. You remember? He says if you have that that house address, the one you generate electronically.
GPS address. Yeah.
Yes. They will deliver to your house. You don't have to request for it. Hey! You remember Super Odi? When Super Odi was faced with such situations, he always used to shout, Abakede. You remember? That was an Abakede moment. Hey! What happened? Look at you. What? Put that aside. Then this one, I don't know where it came from. The abolition of the National Service Scheme.
Yeah.
Why?
He said that people are not happy with it.
Who told him that?
What should we see for the future?
I mean, the National Service Scheme. This is one scheme which was introduced in order to instill a sense of patriotism in our graduating youth, to introduce them to work ethics, to give them breathing space while they search for room. You understand? In the
Labor market.
I don't want to call it a labor market. It's not a labor market. You understand? Yeah, labor market is under capitalism. You understand? And then he comes and he says, I'm going to abolish it. And he says it with a straight face. Abolish it for what? Last week, I had the privilege of interviewing the executive director of the National Service Scheme. And Senna, the man spoke eloquently about how to transform the National Service Scheme so that it doesn't depend on the national purse, so that it will contribute significantly to the reduction of importation of food and so on. And he has a blueprint which he claimed to have submitted to government. That one too, they dodged him from Dr. Bawumia. They didn't make him see it. So he's going to abolish the National Service Scheme in a situation of high unemployment. So he's going to abolish the National Service Scheme, but his government came up with NAPCO. Unbelievable! You know, Charlie, the man is my brother. Oh, I have to be careful.
Really?
Oh, Bawumia is my brother, Master. I have to be careful. You know? Look, every ambassador in Ghana was invited to the event. I hope you know that. How many turned up? 5.
Really?
5. Now, what is interesting is that by the time he started speaking, all the ambassadors had left. What happened? I don't know. The first ambassador to leave was the German ambassador. The second ambassador to leave was the Palestinian ambassador. Check. If I'm lying, tell me. The people who came, who managed to come, were 5. They left. Why? What happened? And then you know that, Senna, I've been in PR practice for some time. Maybe I was not a very good practitioner. But there are some basic rules that all of us learn in PR. If you have a message, you first and foremost weigh your message. If it's a good message, which would win for you and so on, you want to deliver that message at a time when everybody's attention will be caught. Classic PR message. You choose the time, choose the time, choose the moment, and so on. Those are carefully chosen by any serious organization and so on, PR. So I'm sitting down and I hear that this whole thing was slated to coincide with the semi-final matches of AFCON. Was it deliberate? And if it was deliberate and was done by a PR expert, the obvious implication is that, hey, the message is no good, don't go and deliver it at this time. If it was by accident, more wahala. If it was by accident, it means poor planning. So even the timing was problematic. the timing was so problematic. Whatever way you look at it, disaster. You understand? Now, there's one thing which was good about this address. And I think it's important to say it. For the first time, I didn't see the attempt to excite regional and ethnic sentiments. And that was very good about this Bawumia presentation. And I will urge him from the bottom of my heart that if he has become Paul, the latter Paul, not the original Paul, Paul Ambantem, if he has become Paul, he should remain Paul. Because the excitement of regional and ethnic sentiments is so nauseating, it's clearly unacceptable. And may not vote for me should not be repeated anywhere. I'm so happy that he didn't repeat it this time. Because first of all, it doesn't make sense. Here is a man who was so busy working to defeat a Notna in an election to be replaced by somebody from the eastern region. Then all of a sudden he says, no, we Notners also deserve to be president. When did he realize that Notners deserve to be president? When did he realize that? This is Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana. We don't care about what regional leaders come from. And we shouldn't care about what regional leaders come from. What you should care about is to have leaders who in 7 years would not increase the price of kenke, or their actions will not lead to the increase in the price of kenke from 50 pesos to 5 cedis. That's what we want. If my leader comes from a Kesi and he wants to maintain the price of kenke at 50 pesos, I'm happy with him. If he comes from Bumpurugu and he wants to maintain the price of kenke at 5 cedis, I'm happy with him. Of course, if he comes from a Palm or Gama and he works to maintain the price of kenke at 50 pesos, I'm happy with him. If he comes from Alata in Apam, where my grandparents come from, and within 7 years he moves the price of kenke from 50 pesos to 5 cedis, I will work against him and I will fight him. So where we come from is not important. You should stop that. And I'm happy it appears that he's beginning to see wisdom and he's stopping that ethnic and regional thing. He's stopping it. Good for him, good for Ghana. And then there's this issue also about separating a fight which does not exist. He is going to be the unifier. He's going to unify Muslims and Christians. Why did we start fighting Muslims and Christians for him to come and separate us or unify us? So he's dealing with phantoms. He's not dealing with reality. He's dealing with phantoms. And I'm so happy that in his so-called vision, presentation of vision, there was no vision there anyway. In his so-called presentation of vision and so on, this Christian-Muslim fight did not come up. There were so many things about his own administration that he wanted to reject. And when I saw him rejecting policies he levied and so on, I was sitting down waiting for him to reject one more thing. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. His boss has said that he stands firmly with Ukraine and Israel. Do you notice that one he didn't reject? So he stands firmly with Ukraine and Israel like his boss? Israel, an apartheid racist occupationist republic. Bawumia didn't go there at all. He stands firmly with Israel and Ukraine. You cannot stop the war in Baku. You are going to stand with Ukraine against Russia. Are you mad? Baku? You can't stop the war in Baku. I'm back in it. You can't stop the war in Baku. You are going to stand with Ukraine. Go and stand with Ukraine. Look, Ghana, we have enough troubles already. Oh. The hunger, all the kinds of problems that we have, bad roads and so on. We don't want to stand with Ukraine. We want our leaders to do things that will build our roads. Look, when it rains and you go to Domi Market, you cry for the poor woman. When it rains and you go to the Marata Market, you cry for the poor woman. These are the small challenges, but important challenges that we face. And we expect our leaders to deal with. Standing with Ukraine, firmly with Ukraine, does not solve that problem. And we must respect our history, respect our role in the national liberation struggles in Africa. And if we do that, we'll be acting as South Africa and not be standing firmly with Israel, an apartheid racist republic ruled by demented leaders and so on. That's what we stand with. That one, Bawumia had no problems with it. Then there was something else. Bawumia praised free SHS to the highest heavens. Something, hey, this man, what's wrong with him? Bawumia led our team that went to negotiate with the IMF. Is he going to deny that too? Was he an apranke on that trip? And if he was an apranke, who was the driver? Kenu Foreta? I doubt. He led the negotiation team. The Ghana government and the IMF agreed that the program should be reviewed. Go and check, go and read. That is the one he likes. That is the one he praised the government for. That is the one he's going to religiously implement. When he has already signed an agreement to review it. So now should I talk some more? Should I say some more?
We are listening.
Master, let's end here. Let's end here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, that should end our discussion on the very first topic. That's on what Dr. Bawumia presented, called it his vision. There are lots of messages you sent to me on this, on my WhatsApp number. Some of you are sending me personally messages. There's this one that I can only read but not mention the name of the person. It says, on the online passport application arguments, it needs to be underscored that the Comptroller and Accountant General, who was the Director of Finance at the Foreign Ministry during JDM's era, was a member of the Ministry's Technical Committee on Passport, which was headed by Ambassador Leslie Kojo Christian. At the time the online project was launched, they should ask the controller if it is not a fact. That's another issue that people have been raising questions with. He claims that they started the online passport application thing, and they are being challenged on that fact. There's also this one which says, hi, Bawumia is seriously a joke and can never be Ghana's president. Just listen to him repeat.
Abusia Wayne and Sama Kwesi Pratt Jr. Ede etu Ghana. You see the MPP amanyoko ne de akoye ade wo. You see the NDC amanyoko no comfortable lead. Omo wa no mutima omo the bets. Ese kan mo say eni kwan so omo ye den. Omo da NPP omo ni abre a omo ye groundwork. Nti no NDC amanyoko ne de omo ni mbre na is electoral commission ene ne nko form akakra no omo ni abra omo di agro omo beje power no efri omo nsem. Ye bede ya abudwafo ase se omo nya omo je pene ekokoti sa audio no ema ye besa so aka mo se mo won nsem kan bia mo de be share your comment section, like share ma afofro so no ensa into me enka bi eye POG Media medamase.